The hum of the jet engines filled the cabin of Flight 482 from Los Angeles to New York, a dull drone that faded into the background of crying infants, impatient sighs, and the occasional rustle of snack wrappers. But amid the ordinary chaos of air travel, one sound pierced the monotony, a high-pitched, continuous cry that refused to fade. A young boy no older than 7 sat in seat 14A, his small hands clenched against his face, tears streaming uncontrollably. Passengers exchanged glances, some annoyed, some sympathetic, but no one quite knew what to do. His father, a sharply dressed man with silver hair and eyes heavy with exhaustion, tried everything, holding his son, whispering softly, even offering candy, but the boy's sobs only grew louder. The cabin crew, polite yet visibly tense, approached again and again, but nothing worked. The boy couldn't hear their words, he was deaf, his name was and the man beside him, the one nervously checking his expensive watch, murmuring a please, please under his breath, was Jacob Monroe, a tech millionaire known for his calm confidence in the business world but utterly helpless now as a father. Jacob had chartered private jets his whole life, but today he had chosen to fly commercial, hoping his son could experience something normal, something human, after years of therapy and silence. Ethan had been born deaf and recently lost his mother to cancer, and though Jacob provided the best doctors, tutors, and speech therapists money could buy, he couldn't seem to buy his son's peace. Ethan's crying wasn't just from fear of flying, it was grief, confusion, and loneliness bottled into one fragile heart. Row 17C belonged to a girl with pigtails and a pink unicorn backpack, Emma, age 8. She had been playing quietly with her tablet, headphones snug over her small ears, watching cartoons when she noticed the boy 3 rows ahead crying. She peeked between the seats, her eyes narrowing in curiosity rather than irritation. Her mother, sitting beside her, whispered gently, "Honey, don't stare." But Emma didn't listen. Something about the boy's tears felt familiar. She tugged her mother's sleeve and said softly, "Mommy, I think he can't hear." Her mother blinked in surprise. "What makes you think that?" "He doesn't look when people talk to him." "I learned about that in school. We had a girl who used her hands to talk. Remember?" Her mother hesitated, unsure whether to encourage or stop her. But before she could say anything, Emma unbuckled her seat. She walked up the aisle quietly, holding onto the seatbacks for balance as the plane hit a patch of turbulence. Passengers looked up, some smiling at her courage, others frowning at the interruption. Jacob noticed her small figure approaching and sighed, assuming she'd complain. But then she stopped right in front of his son. Ethan's face was red and blotchy, his chest heaving from sobbing so hard it hurt. Emma crouched slightly so their eyes met. Then, with the innocent confidence only a child could have, she moved her hands. "Hi, my name is Emma." Ethan froze. His tearful eyes widened, disbelief flickering through the pain. He watched her hands carefully, blinking fast, then slowly, hesitantly, he signed back. "I'm Ethan." The transformation was instant and electric. The sobs stopped mid-breath, the tears still glistening but no longer falling. Emma smiled wide, her fingers dancing again. "Why are you sad?" Jacob stared in utter shock, mouth slightly open. He didn't understand the signs, but he could see his son responding, truly responding for the first time in months. The boy's lips curved into something that looked almost like a smile. Ethan signed, "I miss my mom." Emma nodded, her eyes softening. "My dad left when I was little. I miss him too, but my mom says they're still with us in our hearts." Ethan looked at her hands, then at her face, as if trying to hold on to her every word. He nodded, his breathing calming. The flight attendants exchanged glances of astonishment. The crying boy, the one who had made half the plane restless, was now sitting quietly, smiling faintly at a little girl who used her hands like light beams in the dark. Emma's mother hurried up the aisle, whispering, "Emma, you can't just walk around." Her words trailed off as she saw what was happening. The entire front section of the cabin had gone silent, passengers peeking between seats, watching this wordless conversation that said more than speech ever could. For the next hour, Emma and Ethan had talked. She showed him how to make shapes with her fingers for colors and animals. He signed a plane, and she laughed, showing him how to sign a bird. He giggled for the first time that day, a soft, genuine sound that made Jacob press a trembling hand to his face. He couldn't remember the last time he'd heard his son laugh. When the meal service began, Emma refused to leave Ethan. She sat in the empty middle seat beside him with her mother's permission, showing him the tiny butter packets and fruit cups, signing silly stories about talking grapes and heroic sandwiches. Jacob watched quietly, occasionally whispering a thank you to Emma's mom, who only smiled and said, "She's just being herself." At one point, Ethan pointed toward the window. His fingers moved slowly. That cloud looks like a puppy. Emma pressed her hands to her mouth, giggling. She signed back, I see it. It's chasing a big marshmallow. The two laughed silently together, and Jacob's heart swelled with something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Halfway through the flight, Jacob leaned toward Emma's mother. Yeah, he didn't know anyone else his age knew sign language, he said softly. The woman smiled. Emma's school has an inclusion program. They teach basic ASL to all students so they can talk to classmates who can't hear. She loved it. Jacob nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in his throat. You have no idea what this means to me. He hasn't connected with anyone since his mom passed. I thought I was losing him completely. Hours later, as the plane began its descent into New York, the lights dimmed to a soft amber. The sky outside blazed with sunset, orange melting into pink into violet. Ethan leaned against the window, calm and content, Emma beside him sketching little pictures on a napkin. A plane, a puppy cloud, two stick figures holding hands. She passed it to him and he smiled, signing, Can I keep it? She nodded, beaming. When the plane landed, a round of applause broke out from some passengers, partly for the safe landing, partly for the unseen miracle that had unfolded midair. Jacob unbuckled slowly, his eyes wet. He turned to Emma and her mother, saying, You both changed my son's day. You changed my life. He reached into his pocket for something, his wallet, but stopped. Didn't feel right to offer money for something so pure. Instead, he looked at Emma and said, Would you let me do something for your school, the one that taught you sign language? Her mother hesitated, smiling politely. That's kind, but please, Jacob said gently. It's the least I can do. 2 months later, the world would read about it in the news. The Millionaire Fund's sign language program for kids nationwide, inspired by a little girl on a plane. But at that moment on that day, there was no publicity, no cameras, only the quiet bond between two children who had bridged a world of silence with their hand. As they reached the baggage claim, Ethan tugged on his father's sleeve and signed, Dad, can we see Emma again? Jacob crouched down, his throat tight. We will, he promised, signing the words as best he could, his movements clumsy but earnest. Ethan's eyes sparkled, and he wrapped his arms around his father's neck. For the first time in months, Jacob didn't feel like a man trying to fix everything with money. He felt like a father, learning, healing, trying. Emma ran back for a moment, clutching something, a small paper heart folded from the napkin she'd drawn on. She handed it to Ethan. Inside was written in shaky handwriting, Friends Forever. Ethan traced the words with his finger, then signed thank you. Emma smiled and waved as she left with her mother, disappearing into the crowd. That night in a quiet hotel room overlooking the city lights, Ethan fell asleep without tears. Jacob sat by his bedside, staring at the little paper heart beside him. The city hummed below, alive and endless, and Jacob realized something profound. That kindness didn't need a stage or wealth or attention. Sometimes it was as small as a little girl walking down an airplane aisle because she recognized another person's pain. Months later, Jacob kept his promise. He met with education boards, signed checks, and helped create the Hands of Hope initiative, a program that provided free sign language education in schools across the country. The story went viral, but Jacob never mentioned the girl's name publicly. She didn't need fame. Her act was a message, not a headline. Years later, at a school assembly in Los Angeles, children stood on a stage, their small hands moving in perfect harmony, signing You Are Not Alone. Among them stood a boy, taller now, confident, his blue eyes bright, Ethan Monroe. And in the front row sat a little girl, older now but with the same warm smile, clapping proud. The audience rose to their feet in applause, not just for the performance, but for what it represented. The quiet power of understanding, the courage to reach out, and the truth that love doesn't always need words to be heard. Sometimes it only needs hands and a heart willing to listen.